Warning: this program contains images of people who are deceased.
It's 10 minutes past 10 on ABC Kimberley. The far north saw a lot of active service during World War II from both Allied and enemy planes. On March 20th, 1942, an RAAF plane was flying to Wyndham over the Joseph Bonaparte Gulf when the engine suddenly lost power. Pilot Sergeant Lew Dwyer and Sergeant Warwick Carmody decided to head for the coast, and they crash-landed on the mudflats near the border. The men survived the accident, and so did the Wirraway, although not for long. In the past 62 years, the plane has succumbed to salt corrosion, looting and the harsh elements. A salvage team from the Kununurra Historical Society has been working hard in recent months to preserve what's left of the plane, and now it forms a new display at the town's museum. It will be officially unveiled next week on March the 20th. Andrew Barker is intimately involved in the Wirraway Preservation Challenge. He stumbled across the wreck last year while fossicking for rocks. Andrew's also the treasurer of the Kununurra Historical Society. Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning, Vanessa. How are you?
I'm well. What did you think when you were out fossicking and you suddenly came across this discarded piece of metal?
Yes, well, at first, as we approached it, we'd been around the island, and it was actually an island on the salt marsh with trees. So we'd been around the island and came across what looked like, at first, a shipwreck. And as we got closer, we could see the canopy frames, which were really the only thing left above the surface of the mud. So we realised that it was an aircraft, and
just arrived here and
started doing a bit of research on it, and turned up the story about A20-62.
Aeroplane.
When did you realise that it was significant, this plane?
I think pretty much straight away. We just filmed the wreck site at first. That was in September, and after only a few days, we found the story about it on, well, there's one website on the internet which showed a plane in the Territory. It's actually in WA, but it was listed as an NT crash, so it took a bit of sleuth work, but...
And where officially did it crash land, if there's this little
it's
bit
about
of...
4 k's just inside the border, so it's in WA, but only just.
And it's pretty tough country up there. I looked at it on the map, and it wouldn't be the nicest place to crash land.
No, that's for sure. And, well, after the fellas crashed, they had to walk off that salt marsh, and it would have been wet, so it wouldn't have been much fun for them, I'm sure of that.
Andrew, tell me a bit more about the story that you have found out about what happened on March 20, 1942.
Okay, well, you've told how they came across the Gulf and got oil on the windscreen. After landing, the second Wirraway that was flying with them followed them in. And that was piloted by Black Jack Walker, who was the commanding officer of 12 Squadron. And so he followed them in and decided that he wouldn't be able to land because it was just too wet on the marsh. So he went on into Wyndham and alerted the authorities, who then contacted Carlton Hill by pedal radio. And after that, Charlie Pretlove and 4 Aboriginal stockmen from there proceeded out to Cleanskin Bore. Took them a day or two. Took the fellas 2 days to walk across just to the edge of the bush from the marsh. So if you can imagine coming down from a hill, the last hill towards the coast, and then you've got a very wide, up to 30 kilometre wide, flat salt marsh. It's more like a desert, you know, like white, grey, sandy desert. Marsh is really a bit of a misnomer, I guess. It's the sort of place you could only drive on for maybe 2 months window of opportunity in the year where you can do that. So it's really the sort of place that you just can't get to most of the time.
Very remote. So what's actually left of the plane? You mentioned that the engine is now in Darwin and you've got a few bits and pieces. What have you got?
We've got the stainless steel canopy frames. There was 3 canopy frames, and really they were the only things that were left intact. When we first viewed it in September, there was actually other parts there. There was a manifold and some other pieces which 3 weeks later were gone. We came back to actually retrieve it after just filming it the first time, and somebody had been in and, you know, some of the pieces were already missing. So
oh, no.
Over the years, I think that's happened a lot. A lot of people, you know, have souvenired bits and pieces. So
you were calling for some of those relics to be donated back to the museum display. Did anyone come forward and give up their...
No, unfortunately nobody has, but you never know.
It's not too late. It's not too late to donate to the museum.
That's true.
So it must be quite an exciting little display, having the stories to go with it from the pilots themselves.
That's true, and a lot of our display is focusing on these stories. We've actually started restoring the canopy frames, and we're putting new perspex in one side of the frame, and the other side will be more or less how we found it. So we'll be able to give people an idea of the condition it was in at the wreck site.